Hey everyone, so we just want to talk about skills credentials today. So we've got a proposal in Fund 7 where we're looking at how we can apply a pilot for learnershape who got funded in Fund 6 for their skills authentication and their protocol they're working on, and how we can look at doing a collaborative approach to exploring an initial solution for that. So jumping in.
Hi, I'm Maury from LearnerShape. I've been working in the authentication space for a long time, since the early days of the web in the 90s. This is a cartoon from back then that says, on the internet, nobody knows you're a dog. And that's not entirely true anymore, but authentication is still pretty bad on the internet. A lot of the efforts that people tried to do way back then, big, ambitious efforts, didn't go that well. We think that blockchain is a huge opportunity to fix this, and are really excited to be among the pioneers using Atala Prism to do this, and we're applying it to skills. Next slide, please, George. So, focusing on skills and authentication, LearnerShape is building open source skills infrastructure, which we call it the world's first AI-based open source learning infrastructure, which is a set of microservices to enable a wide variety of learning applications. You can see some of our open source code on GitHub. We've got a link there. In Project Catalyst, we've been focusing on skills authentication. And as George mentioned, in Fund 6, we were funded for a project called Universal Skills Authentication, which is a proof of concept for a protocol and an app to deliver authentication of any skills. Think of it like a digital CV, where you can say, these are my skills. And then a third party can authenticate any skill that's on that CV. So this project that we're here to talk about today will be the first pilot of this protocol. And George is going to tell you some more about how we'll do that. But basically, there will be authentication of a skill that's selected. We're really excited to be partnering with PACE on this, because PACE has been putting a lot of effort into community credentials. They got funded in Fund 6 for this. In Fund 7, we're partnering on this skills credentials project, and PACE is also doing additional work and another proposal on community credentials. Back to you, George.
Thanks, Maury. So in terms of how we're going to kind of process and go through this and execute it, from the community credentials kind of approach, we realized that doing a collaborative, very open approach made a lot of sense. So we're going to go through that kind of same process of recruiting contributors, namely probably a few from the Atala Prism pioneers is a perfect example. And then with that kind of cohort of people to vote on the skill that could be assessed. And it's likely going to be between Plutus, Atala Prism, like the SDK, or maybe just Haskell as a language potentially. So we'll focus on things that are very specific and useful for the Cardano ecosystem, and look at which one's the best one to do a pilot example. And then with that, we're going to take all of the learnings from what Maury's working on with the LearnerShape protocol on that selected skill. And then you have to kind of document this kind of process for the governance and how that kind of skill is going to work. So everyone kind of know this is how this skill credential is attained. And then we'll do a reference, nice, easy verification example on the projectcatalyst.org that other sites and protocols could take from that, and then use that use case for however they want, whether it's the same skill or a different one. And this is how we've done like a simple example of how to verify against it. In terms of partners, similar to the community credentials one, we've got Gimba Labs for the project-based learning. It's a really good environment for maximizing the education and collaboration between everyone who's going to getting involved. LearnerShape, obviously, we mentioned, we're talking through the skills authentication. They're going to provide coordination and guidance on exactly how to use the protocol and everything, surrounding that kind of work they're doing, and making it nice and easy for the contributors to start using it. And this skills kind of authentication really comes under that umbrella of this community credentials idea of what are these bottoms up approaches we can use to kind of drive adoption for Atala Prism and self-sovereign identity as a whole. And back to you, Maury.
Thanks, George. So in terms of measuring our return on intention, I want to talk first about the specific KPIs for this proposal. So we will measure the number of credentials that are issued, the number of contributors to the project. As George said, this is an open learning exercise, and as well as people spectating, people who are watching what we're doing. We want to measure the use of the educational resources that we put out there about the skill that we're authenticating. And we want to measure the use of the open source code that we're going to create in this project. That's the KPIs that will be used for assessment of the project, but we want to also talk about the long-term vision because we think it's really exciting. Yeah, as I said at the beginning, this could be a real killer app for blockchain and for Cardano. And we want to move from this first initial credential to more community credentials, kind of stuff that George is working on, then broad adoption and interoperability, and hopefully have a chance of this being a market standard. We're going to adhere to World Wide Web Consortium standards, so it should be interoperable, but there's no reason that Cardano can't be a leader in this space. And we're looking to the future. And the long-term vision is, as I said, Cardano Prism leadership, but broad interoperability. We're going to be open source, and this should work with other authentication protocols like Hyperledger Indy and many others. Back to you, George.
Thank you. So to get involved, anyone can contribute and get involved with this. It's fully kind of contributor focus. My kind of aim is who's going to start the proposal and start to think about ideas. I'm fully happy to be completely not involved, and the contributors and coordinators to form and take the full kind of funding. That is kind of a big kind of target for us. If you want to reach out and ask any questions to us, there's the IdeaScale proposal in IdeaScale you can find under pay skills credentials in the Fund 7 Accelerate Decentralized Identity Challenge. And on Discord, our kind of handles are given there. So please reach out if you've got any questions. And that's it, I think. Anything else you want to add, Maury, or I think we might be done.
I think we're done. Thanks, George.